Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I am coming to you with the 5 best and 5 worst concealers. This is a mix of high-end and drugstore. I'm just talking about concealers across the board and just wanted to talk with you a little bit about what my picks are or my experiences have been with some concealers that I have tried. Some that I absolutely love, some that didn't work out so well for me. Now do please keep in mind that if you enjoy any of these concealers or hate any of the concealers that I've got in either category, this is not, me trying to say that you are wrong. That is not it at all. This is simply me giving you my opinion on which concealers have worked best for me that I consider really, really good, and which concealers didn't work so great. I'm gonna go ahead and start out with the 5 best concealers. The first concealer that I wanted to mention is one that can be found at the drugstore, and it is the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. This concealer is a beautiful, beautiful concealer. It is actually what I've got on my lids right now. It is very, very affordable, can be found anywhere that they sell drugstore makeup. The Fit Me Concealer has got such a really nice consistency. It is not too thick, it is not too thin, and it does a beautiful job at covering. This is it right here. It just does a really, really nice job of concealing any of the darkness that I have on my under eyes. The Maybelline Fit Me is in 25 medium, and it is a really nice concealer for brightening. I enjoy using this concealer down the bridge of my nose and to highlight my forehead, my chin, and my upper lip as well. It does a really, really great job of covering any of the darkness that I have under my eyes. It does not cause any kind of creasing, or it doesn't emphasize the fine lines around my eyes. It doesn't bring out any dryness on my under eyes. It does spread on very nicely. I usually use a beauty blender, but even with a brush, this concealer is a really, really, really pretty concealer, and it is absolutely one of my favorites. The next concealer that I wanted to talk about was the Charlotte Tilbury The Retoucher concealer, and this is what it looks like in the packaging. First of all, the packaging is really, really beautiful, but so is anything that Charlotte Tilbury puts out. Her packaging is bar none some of the prettiest because, of course, it is rose gold. It's got this beautiful maroon that looks so nice with it. But that aside, this concealer is one of my top 5 concealers just because it goes on very, very sheer. It's got the kind of top that you click to get the product to come up. As always with this type of applicator, it takes a while to get that first bit of product to come up, but once you do, this concealer is actually quite pretty. It goes on very, very thin. It is a very, very thin concealer. It's got a very thin consistency to it, but it is gorgeous in the sense that it really does a good job of blurring any of the fine lines or any of the wrinkles that you might have on your under eye, and that's what this particular concealer is all about. I think Charlotte Tilbury wanted to create a concealer that would have kind of like an airbrush effect on the skin. When you've got, in photography, you go through and you retouch pictures, and they just kind of blur out all of the lines. That's what this concealer is intended to do. It lasts a really long time. It doesn't make my under eyes look cakey or anything like that. It actually applies very beautifully, but it is a very thin formula, which that caught me off guard a little bit because I'm used to concealers having a slightly thicker formula. This one is very, very thin, but does a very good job of covering up the under eyes. The Retoucher, this isn't for medium as well, although I wouldn't call this a true medium because of all of the concealers that I have. This medium is actually a match for my skin tone. It is a beautiful, beautiful concealer that is definitely worth trying out if you are interested. It's very nice on women with aging skin and who want to kind of help out the under eye just a little bit. The next concealer that I'm going to talk about is a cult classic here on YouTube, and it is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. This concealer is in ginger. It is very, very opaque, and it is also extremely brightening on my skin tone. And that's what it looks like. People use this like crazy, not so much anymore, I don't think, on YouTube, but there for a while. This was in the beauty circles, this was the concealer. And it is a very, very pretty concealer. It goes on really, really well. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It is one of the more dry formulas out there though, so bear that in mind. If you've got dry under eyes, this one might emphasize fine lines and wrinkles, but for me, it tends to be perfect. It is not overly drying for my under eyes. I actually really love the way it looks on my under eyes, and it is one, I think this is my second one that I've purchased. I know people go through these like crazy. It's a beautiful, beautiful concealer. Very, very opaque. Really leaves a nice finish. Doesn't emphasize the lines on my under eyes. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I think it is one of the best concealers on the market. The other concealer that I wanted to talk about is and this one's got a very long name. It is the Bare Minerals Bare Skin Complete Coverage Serum Concealer. And this one is in medium. And that's what it looks like right here. The Bare Skin Concealer is actually very, very moisturizing. And it is one that I reach out for when I want to have some moisture back on my under eyes. As you can see, it is a very wet formula, and it does do a great job at concealing. It does have the benefit of being a serum concealer, and as you can see, I mean, it's really nice. It's not too thick. It's not too drying. It goes on really well. Does a great job at providing moisture. I reach for this when I'm having a lot of trouble with dry under eye. Now, if I don't have dry under eyes, I tend not to reach for it because it can be a little bit overly moisturizing and it can crease. This is one that you have to powder right away when you apply. So just keep that in mind with the Bare Skin Concealer, because it is so moisturizing that it can do that. Also, if you like baking on your under eyes but sometimes find that it is too drying, this is actually a really good concealer for baking, I think, because it is so moisturizing. You don't run the risk of over drying your under eyes with baking. This next concealer is kind of like, it is the granddaddy of all concealers. I think it is even more of a cult classic than the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, and that is the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. And this concealer is one of the best, I think, that you can find on the market, simply because it has technology in it that will prevent it from creasing. And it really does work. It does a great job at really helping to camouflage any of the lines, wrinkles, and fine lines that you might have on your under eyes. It isn't drying to the under eye. It is actually really, really good concealer. And so this is what it looks like. It is very runny. But it is a really, really lovely concealer in that it does exactly what it says it's going to do. And as you can see, it's got a very liquidy consistency. It goes on really, really nicely. And I used a half pump, and look at how much I'm getting out of that half pump. I mean, that is incredible to me. It does camouflage or blur out any of the lines, and does not crease at all. This particular concealer also acts very, very well as an eyeshadow primer. I find that the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer actually goes on best with a brush. I don't like the finish if I use a beauty blender. I really, really don't. Anytime I have used that concealer, I've got to use a brush with it. The beauty blender just doesn't do it justice, in my opinion. Now, I can go in after I've applied it with a brush if I want to get rid of any brush strokes, you know, if I want to soften it up a little bit. Then I can go in with a beauty blender and kind of soften things out. But honestly, brush is the way to go, at least for me, for the MAC Pro Longwear. And again, to me, that is top of the line concealer. In my opinion, it is probably the best one that I have ever tried, and one that I absolutely love. I know that it will not let me down at all, and it will last a good long while. Those are the top 5 concealers. Now for the top 5 worst concealers, in my opinion. I'm going to start out with the Maybelline Better Skin Concealer, and this is in medium. And this is what the packaging looks like. It does have a wand applicator. I really, really dislike this concealer. I don't like the way that it looks on my eyes. I think that it just doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't provide me the coverage that I want. It really emphasizes fine lines and wrinkles on my under eye. I'm just not, I'm not into it. I can't. And it's a little bit more dry than the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. It's got a different consistency consistency. It's a little bit thicker, and I just don't like how it looks on my skin. Even now, swatched on my hand, I can see the wrinkles in my skin on my hand with this concealer. You're not going to be able to see it on camera. It still is kind of sheer in my opinion. I can see the color, the green of my vein. I'm not a fan of the concealer. I used it a couple of times and I just hated what my eyes looked like after a couple of hours. It just didn't work out very well for me. The next one is one that I recently tried and I retried and I just did not like it, and it was the LA Colors Concealer. And this can be found at Dollar Tree or Dollar General, one of those dollar stores only, and or online. And I just wasn't a fan of this concealer. It just didn't cover at all. You can tell right now, right here, that it is very, very streaky and it just doesn't provide any coverage. And sheer is not what I want my concealers to be. Not a fan of that concealer because it just doesn't provide the kind of coverage that I would like to have. The other concealer that I wanted to talk about that has the same problem in my opinion, but also I'm not a fan of the applicator, and that is the Milani Retouch and Erase Concealer. And this particular concealer is also very, very thin in formula. It doesn't provide me the coverage that I need, and I really hate the fact that it has this little sponge tip applicator because it gets so dirty in this little cap. Again, it is kind of sheer, but kind of, I don't know, it doesn't provide me the coverage of the dark under eye circles that I have like I need it to. Now, I will say that I have used this to mix with the next concealer, but this video is all about concealers that are good from the get-go. I don't have to do anything special with them. I don't have to combine. I don't have to, I don't have to mix to make them work. I don't have to do anything to make them work. They work on their own right out of the gate. And like I said, I used to mix this with the next concealer that I'm going to talk about, and the combination was a favorite, but out of the gate, they're not very good. The next concealer that I'm going to talk about is the ever popular Tarte Shape Tape. People love this concealer all over YouTube. This concealer is extremely thick. It is very opaque. It's got a really big fat wand, and generally how I use it when I have to mix it is I will dot it. You don't need a lot in order to get coverage. Coverage is not an issue with this concealer for me. It does a wonderful, wonderful job at concealing, but it is very, very drying. I don't like using it on its own. I have to mix it with something that is got more moisture. I mix it with stuff like the Milani Retouch and Erase. This is a thinner consistency and thins out the Shape Tape some. I have also used it with the Bare Skin concealer because this is highly moisturizing, and actually those combinations work very, very well. But if I wanted a concealer that I would just reach for, use, and not have to worry about, not have to mix, or not have to do anything special to make them work, Tarte Shape Tape is also not another one of those. I really, really wish that they would come out with a slightly more moisturizing formula, because otherwise it would definitely be a holy grail concealer for me. I would love it because the coverage is amazing. It's just so incredibly drying on my under eyes, and it seems to work very well for women who do not have a lot of wrinkles or creasing or dryness on their under eyes. And for those of us that are older, that are over 40 or over 50 or so on and so forth, having something that emphasizes the lines like that is just not where we want to go. We want the opposite, and I think the Tarte Shape Tape just doesn't deliver in that respect. The last concealer that I'm going to talk about, and I've talked about it before, and it hurts me to have to say this because I really, really wanted to love this concealer, but it just could not work for me. It is the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, and it's the one in the little pot. It's got a really nice consistency, a really nice feel to it, and it really is matte, but it is so incredibly drying for my under eyes. And that is it right there. It does a great job at coverage, but it just does not do well on my under eyes because it is so incredibly drying. I'm just so disappointed that this did not work for me, and there it is right there. It's a very, very matte formula, and it really does emphasize the wrinkles and the lines on my under eyes. I really, really did want it to work for me, and it just doesn't, and that's really, really sad to me. I really hate to say that. I'm just sad. I really wanted to love it, and I love how it feels. It's so nice and soft and velvety, but it's so incredibly drying on my under eyes. Those are my picks for the 5 best and 5 worst concealers, and this is a new series that I'm starting. I thought I would bring the best and worst. It may not be 5. It may actually be, you know, more better than worse, more worse than better, but it just so happens I had 5 concealers for both categories. It will be just a best and worst series, and I hope that you enjoy this series. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see next, please let me know. Anyway, those are my thoughts on my best and worst concealers. If you have any of your best and worst concealers, if you could leave those in the comments down below, I would love to know which ones work for you. I would like to know if some of the ones that I've named as worst are actually working for you, and if some of the ones that I've named as best don't work for you. I'm very curious to hear your opinions on these products, so leave it in the comments down below. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for dropping by. Please hit the red subscribe button and the notification bell so that you'll know when I put out new content. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming back. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.